tonight, a man guns down a young father outside his 2-year-old's daycare. Now he's pleading guilty by reason of insanity. Now we're going to examine this plea and what his mental state actually is and what that all means, but first watch this. 36-year-old dad Rusty Snyderman had just dropped his son off at daycare when a minivan pulled up behind him. A man wearing a fake beard disguise got out, approached Snyderman, and shot him several times at close range, then fled. After an intense manhunt, the shooter was identified as Hemi Neuman. Hemi Neuman was not a stranger. In a strange twist, it turns out he was the boss of the victim's wife. Prosecutors say Neuman was in love with Rusty's wife, and the two were having an affair. They say Neuman knew exactly what he was doing and shot Snyderman to get rid of his romantic rival. The victim's widow has denied an affair on the stand, but admits the two held hands.
I was doing the best that I can to deal with that situation.
Neuman pleaded insanity. He says voices in his head told him to kill.
A 6-foot dark demon that looked or sounded like Barry White. A 6-foot bright white angel came to him. Looks like, sounded like Olivia Newton-John.
Now, Hemi Neuman's attorney says he has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, that he had a manic episode, he's psychotic, has delusional symptoms, as we're hearing about. He has hallucinations, he gets these visions and he hears voices. The question here is, did bipolar disorder, mania, did that cause him to kill, or is it just a desperate defense in an attempt to save himself? Straight to my guest, former Miami-Dade County judge and host of Judge Karen Mills Francis, and criminal profiler Pat Brown. Pat, I know you're harder on people than I am, and you just think this is a way to get away with murder.
Well, Dr. Drew, yeah, we've seen it ever since David Berkowitz, son of Sam, said, "That dog made me do it." And then later on, he said, "Yeah, not really. I just made that up." It's about the only defense you have when you're got caught, we absolutely did it. So you might as well go with the insanity defense, although it rarely works, especially when you're targeting a specific person. You know, the angels here didn't tell him to go kill the garbage man. Oddly enough, they told him to very cleverly kill the husband of the woman he wanted. So it's not a very good defense. I don't think he's going to win in this case.
Isn't it possible, though, that he was bipolar? I mean, when I heard his symptoms, I thought, bipolars experience things like that, and they get very agitated, and they get delusional, and they'll go kill people. That happens sometimes.
Well, I would take a look at his history. Did we see him having all these delusions prior to this, or did they just suddenly crop up that particular day when it was convenient? So I think that's what we're going to see. We're going to see the history of it, and I don't think we're going to find it.
Well, now, speaking of his history, apparently he did have a troubled childhood. He claims his dad, who himself was a concentration camp survivor, was mentally and physically abusive to him. He was then sent away to boarding school in Israel, apparently at age 13, and that's when he says he began hearing the voices. Now, his attorney gave a few examples of manic episodes. Interestingly, what I'm going to tell you about is depression. Apparently, he couldn't get out of bed for a period of time in college. That's the depressive phase of a certain type of bipolar disorder.
A lot of us couldn't do that.
Then he became... Pat, I know I can count on you to beat this guy up. So, but I'm sure Karen's going to get in the mix here in just a second. But then a few years later, again, this is the bipolar quality. I just want to educate people about what this thing is we're talking about. They get euphoric. He bought his wife a diamond ring. He's flying his kids on expensive trips to Puerto Rico, which, again, is typical of mania. They spend lots of money. They do all this kind of stuff. Karen, let me give you a chance to ring in here. Do you buy this defense? I mean, I don't know why.
I don't buy it.
You know what, guys? Wait, guys, you know what? I got to tell you something. As a physician, I see lots of bipolar disorder. I don't see lots of psychopaths. You guys see lots of psychopaths. Right. That's why you think everyone's a psychopath.
He said he sees visions. What he saw was the specter of death. This is a textbook, first-degree, premeditated murder case. I mean, he went out and he bought a gun, and he told the guy who he bought the gun from, "Don't tell anybody you know me." He bought a disguise. He bothered to rent a car that was different from the car he normally drives. I mean, this guy planned this thing from top to bottom, and it's really convenient now that he's on trial to say, "Oh, by the way, I suffer from depression." Who doesn't suffer from depression? You can walk into any Barnes and Nobles or go on Amazon.com and buy books that tell you what the symptoms of manic depression are, what the symptoms of some of these other psychoses are. But I don't think that he was psychotic at all. I think he knew exactly what he was doing. and he couldn't come up with something better than Barry White. What is it? Never gonna give you up. Can't get enough of your love, baby. What was Barry White saying?
Hey, Barry White was better than Olivia Newton-John. Oh, that's even worse.
But those are I must tell you, ladies, but that's the part, I know we're laughing and it is funny, but that's the part of it that actually rang true for me. It was so random and bizarre, it's hard to think. I mean, if I were just dreaming up a bipolar defense, I would say, an angel visited me, you know, an angel, and he told me to do things.
Right.
People don't know enough about bipolar usually to go, to bring the bizarre quality in that's so often there with bipolar. I'm just saying.
There are people,
well, maybe they have good
Elvis has left the building.
Maybe maybe they have good consultants, guys. They have good consultants,
done a lot
perhaps.
better than this. This man was on
let
the
me ask
phone with
this.
his wife. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
He was on the phone with this wife 6 different times right after he committed this murder. My question was, how did he know at what time and at what place this husband was going to be? I'm really surprised that the wife hasn't been charged with anything here. It seems really convenient. It seems really convenient. I mean, you have witnesses that say that they saw them, you know, filling up on each other. We have these emails where she's away on vacation and he writes to her and says, "Oh my God, I wish you were here with me." And she writes back, "Ditto." I mean, what does that say? They had something going on here. And another thing, can I just say one other thing? This woman was the only one bringing in an income in this household. He wasn't working. The victim was a house husband. Maybe she thought it would be convenient to get rid of this guy. Maybe she thought he was freeloading at this point, even though he was a Harvard graduate.
Wow, you guys think only the worst of people. I'm impressed.
Well,
let me give you
seen the worst of people.
This is a murder.
I know you
Dr.
do.
Drew.
What's that, Pat?
Well, this guy was a murderer, a cold-blooded murderer. And the second thing is, I agree with this idea about the wife because I've seen this too many times. The guy usually kills because the woman encourages him to do so, to get rid of her husband. Now, the problem with prosecuting her is you have to prove she told him absolutely to do it. And what she can do is she could hint, like, boy, we'd have a better life together if he weren't around, wink, wink. And if he's already psychopathic, he'll take her up on that suggestion if she just tells him sort of where her husband's going to be at what time. He just picks up our son at 8 o'clock.
And when the school called her, and when the school called her to tell her that there was an incident at the school didn't say it involves your child or it involves your husband. She didn't even call her husband. She didn't even text her husband to say there's a problem at the school. Why? Maybe she knew he was dead already.
And Karen, one last thing for you. Don't the courts look at they don't seem to care as much about history as those of us that are clinicians do. You know, evidence of psychopathy in this guy or the woman or the wife. They don't seem to look at that stuff. I've got about 30 seconds. Can you tell me?
No, what they look at is what was the psychotic mind of the person at the time of the incident. This guy planned this thing out too well to a specific person, as the doctor just said, that he couldn't have been psychotic at that time. It doesn't matter if he was psychotic yesterday.
Guilty. That's it. It's over. The case is done. So thank you, ladies. Coming up, people, including us, laugh when they hear this man.